Good evening and welcome to the Upper Darby School District July 13th board meeting. The first item on the work session this evening is the Pledge of Allegiance. We can all stand for the pledge. Pursuant to the board's resolution passed pursuant to section 520.1 of the Pennsylvania Public School Code, and due to the circumstances given rise to that resolution, the board is holding this advertised public meeting virtually. The procedures for this virtual meeting are more fully detailed in the UDSD School Board COVID-19 Special Operating Procedures. Among the procedures contained in the document are those for public participation. Dr. McGarry, would you please outline the public participation procedures this evening?
Yes. Ms. Curry, thank you very much. During the pandemic, and as we've been virtual for our board meetings, the board has made every effort to continue participation by the public. Tonight will be no different. Tonight we have a board meeting, a voting meeting for reports that will come before the board. As such, members of the public can send in a comment to board meeting comments at upperdarbysd.org, or they can phone in a comment to 610-789-7200 extension 2000. In either case, it would be important that the members of the public provide their name, their address, and the specific report they would like to comment on. General comments were to have been received through that email address that I outlined previously to the board by 7:30, and those comments will be read before the board meeting ends. Again, the board will take all comments into consideration prior to voting on any report. We can make this update again if need be, Ms. Curry.
Thank you, Dr. McGarry. The regular virtual meeting of the Upper Darby School District Board of School Directors will please come to order. There was a closed session this evening from 5:30 p.m. until 7:30 p.m. for matters to be discussed within the limitations for closed deliberations as prescribed by Pennsylvania Act 93 of 1998. For this evening's meeting, there were personnel and litigation matters. Roll call. Board Secretary, Mr. Rogers, please.
Dr. Haig,
I'm present.
Mr. Desnoyers,
I am present and can hear the proceedings.
Mr. Warsavage,
I am present and can hear the proceedings.
Mr. Neal,
I am present and can hear the proceedings.
Ms. Williams,
Present.
Mr. Fields,
I am present and I can hear the proceedings.
Mrs. Mitchell,
I am present and I can hear the proceedings.
Mrs. Curry,
I am present.
and we'll note that President Brown is not present tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Before we start, I would like to take a moment to recognize one of our longtime crossing guards. She passed away on June 20th, Eileen Devini, and she was hired back in August of 1998. If we could take a moment of silence and thank you for your service. Thank you. In order to allow this meeting to continue virtually, and as permitted by Policy 003, I move to suspend portions of the following policies. From Policy 006, I move to suspend language in the section titled Public Participation to remove the words "present at a board meeting," and thereby allow members of the public to participate through other means we have provided. In Policy 006.1, I move to suspend the language "a majority of board members shall be physically present at a board meeting when a board member attends through electronic communications." This will allow as many board members as necessary to participate remotely. Do I have a second?
Second, this is Director Warsavage.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Uh,
Aye.
All those opposed? Does anyone abstain? Okay, seeing none, motion passed. The minutes of the combined work session, regular meeting of June 1st, 2021, and the special board meeting of June 15th, 2021 are in the hands of each board member, and I have made them available to the public. I move for their adoption.
This is Mrs. Mitchell, second.
Are there any comments from the board? Seeing none, are there any comments from the public?
There are no comments from the public.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, please signify by saying I oppose and state your name for the record. Those abstaining, please signify by saying I abstain and state your name for the record. Motion carried. The report of the secretary, Ms. Williams.
The report of the secretary is in the hands of each board member and has been made available to the public. I move for its adoption.
Second.
Are there any comments from the board? Are there any comments from the public?
There are no comments from the public.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, please signify by saying I oppose and state your name for the record. Those abstaining, please signify by saying I abstain and state your name for the record. Motion carries. The report of the treasurer, Mr. Neal.
Thank you, Vice President Curry. The report of the treasurer is in the hands of each board member and has been made available to the public. I move for its adoption. May I have a second?
Second.
Are there any comments from the board? Are there any comments from the public?
There are no comments from the public.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, please signify by saying I oppose and state your name for the record. Those abstaining, please signify by saying I abstain and state your name for the record. Motion carries. The budgeted personnel and enrollment reports have been made available to the board and the public and are recorded as a part of the record. No vote is required. Okay, we will now have the report from the superintendent, Dr. Daniel McGarry. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Curry. I appreciate that. Thanks for stepping in tonight. I know these are never easy circumstances to navigate. I will attempt to make the comments brief this evening. I wanted to follow up on a couple of items. So good evening, Upper Darby Royal family, Board President Curry, members of the Upper Darby Board of School Directors, other administrators, staff, and students. I would like to provide a brief update on the following items: reopening of schools and Upper Darby rising. Since March 13th, 2020, as a district and community, we have all had to come together to navigate and understand the pandemic that is COVID-19. We have worked hard as a school district and community to balance our desire to return to normal while doing our best to keep the safety of our students and staff at the forefront of our decisions. As we prepare for the opening of the 21-22 school year, our focus will be the same. We will keep our eye on the many needs of our students, staff, and overall community, having learned a great deal since March 13th, 2020. While we are planning for a return to in-person learning, and up until a recent announcement by the CDC, we were planning on implementing mitigation strategies such as masking and social distancing when absolutely necessary. Again, I want to be clear. We are planning for a return to in-person instruction for the 21-22 school year, and we are planning on implementing mitigation strategies such as masking and social distancing when absolutely necessary. We will continue to encourage students and adults to be vaccinated and to wear masks if they so desire. We will not ignore guidance from health officials, but we are keenly aware of the need to return our students to our schools for in-person instruction while providing options for families and students who are still hesitant to have their students return. I do want to be clear, however, incident rates in Delaware County are very low, and we are strongly encouraging our families to return students to in-person instruction. As we've stated several times over the course of the past few months, we feel that in-person instruction is the best learning model for students, and that having a teaching professional in front of students is the most beneficial way for students to learn and get the most out of their educational experience. Following the 2020-21 school year, we shared that we would review instructional models prior to the opening of the 21-22 school year. During our July Education and Pupil Services Committee, we will be reviewing instructional model options with the community and Board of School Directors. What do I mean by that? We promised this board and we promised the public when we had families or parents who opted for virtual learning next school year or asynchronous learning, in particular at the elementary school level, that we would review the number of students and families who have requested that, our ability to assign a virtual-only teacher, and where we could, avoid having a teacher teach multiple instructional models at the same time. We will be providing an update with several options to the board at the July committee meeting, letting you know 2 recommendations that the administration may have, but also processing through this with the board and the public, making sure that we're taking the right considerations before we move forward. We have had a number of families, elementary school, middle school, and high school, reach out to us who have told us that next year they would like to continue with virtual learning. We previously stated again that when and where there were opportunities to create a virtual synchronous teacher, we would, and we would like to make sure that we make those options available to the public. As I move on from the focus on reopening of our schools, I wanted to take an opportunity this evening to report on our district's efforts to promote unity in the community. Over a year ago, I announced a goal and a plan to form a community advisory committee, Upper Darby Rising. And I'm happy to report that we are now announcing the second phase of Upper Darby Rising. Again, I just want to reiterate, and this will be made public as well, it'll be coming out soon. What is Upper Darby Rising? The Upper Darby School District created its equity plan in 2018. Since then, there has been some progress, but a lot of work still needs to be done to ensure excellence with equity across our district. As the superintendent of schools, I announced an initiative to form a community advisory committee that started with our information and formation of Upper Darby Rising. Last school year, we hosted 7 Upper Darby Rising forums from December until March. The initial initiative engaged more than 435 families. You will find in my report a link and a quick video review of Upper Darby Rising. I'd like to share this video with you moving forward. I don't know that tonight might be the best way to do it, but it's available on the website. There's also 2 reports. I'll quickly pull up right now. The reports are on the website. There's a final report that we have published, and we did this work with the University of Pennsylvania. Trevor, I don't know if you... Is it right there? Okay. Okay. So on the website, we produced the Upper Darby Rising report with the University of Pennsylvania Catalyst GSE program. It gives an overview of the report. It recommends the time. It talks about the time frame, the number of meetings that took place. It also represents shared values from the community, guiding principles, a timeline, and recommended next steps. Again, this is available on the website. It's also linked to my report this evening. And then on May 25th, Harris Sokoloff from the University of Pennsylvania provided this report and a presentation that's also linked in my report to the public and to the board as a follow-up at the conclusion of all of those meetings. I'm bringing that to everybody's attention because sometimes when we make these announcements, others were not available at the time of those meetings, and we wanted to make sure that we continue to circle back and clearly communicate what we're doing. And so what is the next phase of Upper Darby Rising? In our next phase, we plan to create a community advisory board of 12 to 15 members who will help synthesize the lessons learned from the community dialogues, develop the Excellence with Equity detailed action plan, monitor implementation of course adjustments as needed, assist with communicating status updates to various stakeholders in the community. The advisory board will work to bring the community closer together through proactive problem solving. The members will be a diverse group including parents, residents, educators, business owners, neighbors who do not have children attending our schools, partners in education, public safety, and community culture. They will represent, this advisory group, as much as possible, the age, racial, ethnic, social, gender, and sexuality, and economic diversity in the district, township, and boroughs. Prior to discussing what Upper Darby Rising is, I'd like to start out discussing what it is not. Upper Darby Rising is not a political platform for individual members. It is not going to be a voting body making policy decisions. Our Board of School Directors makes policy decisions. It is not an advisory panel attempting to push one belief system over another. What is Upper Darby Rising? Provides community dialogue sessions that invite all stakeholders to help identify key themes, issues, and recommendations to help bring the community closer together. The advisory committee will also develop guidepost principles for taking concrete, inclusive actions and building trust with the district and among the various groups and stakeholders. What does the commitment to Upper Darby Rising involve initially? It may grow. 5 community sessions a year at a minimum, focused on inclusive problem solving and community building ideas. What is the timeline? Meet with each interested community member throughout the month of August and September. Announce the Upper Darby Advisory Committee by the end of September. Announce committee meeting dates for the advisory committee and future public meetings after the formation of the committee not to exceed public events a year, 5 public events a year. We need you. If you are interested in being considered or recommended as someone from the community for this important initiative, please do one of the following. Now, we're trying to make sure we're making this accessible to everyone. We're not asking for a long, drawn-out application process or a multi-page letter. We simply want your interest, and here's how you can become involved. You can send an email to the following address, upperdarbyrising@upperdarbysd.org. Again, multiple ways for you to let us know you'd like to be considered. Send an email to upperdarbysing@upperdarbysd.org with your name, phone number, address, and a brief summary of your desire to participate. Or call us at 610-789-7200 and ask to speak with one of the following members of our team. Supervisor of Equity, Ms. Melissa Figueroa Douglas, Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources and Equity, Dr. John Council, or of course me, Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Daniel McGarry. Or a third option, send us a letter with your address, name, phone number, and a brief summary of your desire to participate to 4611 Bond Avenue, Drexel Hill, PA, 19026. Attention, Superintendent of Schools, Daniel McGarry. Of course, we will make this available to the board, and we will make this a part of my superintendent's report moving forward. But we're excited about this initiative in the second phase, and the third, and the fourth, and the fifth, and the sixth, as we move forward with this information. Again, just in summary, next school year we plan on opening for a return to in-person instruction. Parents who are asking to remain virtual obviously have had that option to do so. We'll continue to work with them to do that. We're making every effort to try to make sure that we're creating instructional models that work for our teachers, our families, and our students. And we're moving forward with Upper Darby Rising in the second phase, and we'll provide an update again in July on the reopening of schools, and again sometime in September, August and September, regarding our plan for Upper Darby Rising. Ms. Curry, that concludes my report for this evening.
Thank you, Dr. McGarry. And thank you to you and all of the administrators and teachers who are putting plans together to make the 2021-2022 school year a successful one. And also looking forward to the initiative of Upper Darby Rising, as the first phase of it was really good. So thank you for continuing to move forward in that. We will now have an update on the June 15th, 2021 Education and Pupil Services Committee meeting. Mrs. Mitchell will read the summary. A detailed summary of the meeting, including public comments, can be found on board docs. Thank you, Mrs. Mitchell.
Thank you, Vice President Curry. The Education and People Services Committee met virtually on June 15th at 6 p.m. All board members were present. We had 3 agenda items. The first agenda item was the PSBA legislative platform, which was informational. Ms. Curry and I discussed the process for forming the 2022 PSBA legislative platform, and there may or may not be a proposal presented tonight and voted on by the board if there is a proposal. Agenda item number 2 was the Upper Darby School District 2021 to 2024 Comprehensive Plan, which was also informational, and the comprehensive plan is on review and has been, I think, for nearly 28 days, or maybe the 28 days has expired at this point. And we will be voting on the comprehensive plan per the PDE guidelines at our August board meeting. The third agenda item was policy 246, school wellness, and you'll hear more about that under the policy report tonight. And there were no public comments for the Education and People Services Committee. And that concludes my report, Mrs. Curry.
Thank you, Mrs. Mitchell. At this time, there is not a proposal that would be presented, but we will continue to support the legislative platform as we will be announcing the board members who will be attending, probably in our next board meeting, who will be attending the conference and the legislative platform, the legislative meeting that takes place in October. Thank you for that. And as we move forward, we now will have an update on the June 15th, 2021 Finance and Operations Committee meeting. Mr. Fields will read the summary. A detailed summary of the meeting, including public comments, can be found on board docs.
Thank you, Vice President Curry. The Finance and Operations Committee met, as previously mentioned, Tuesday, June 15th at 7 p.m., right after the Education and People Services Committee meeting. There were 4 agenda items. 1 got postponed to this month, July's Finance and Operation Committee meeting, so that'll happen later. We had a presentation about the Eastern Delco Bicycle Prioritization Study. This was just informational. Representative David Schwartz from Bergman Architects, Engineers, and Planners introduced and reviewed the current phase of the Eastern Delaware County Bicycle Prioritization Study. And we also introduced a survey we were encouraging residents to complete, looking at desired locations for bicycle paths and what people are looking for that would encourage them to bike to school, bike to other locations in the township. This item correlated to Goal 1 of the Upper Darby School District Comprehensive Plan. We also had the 2021-2022 final budget presentation. In compliance with the Act 1 timeline, District Administration presented the 2021-2022 final general fund budget. The final general fund budget has taken all available and relevant into consideration and is presented with a 2.6 tax increase. This item correlated to Goal 1 of the Upper Darby School District Comprehensive Plan. Policies are postponed till later this month. Also, we had policies that required board action, discussing electronic signatures and records, district social media, and volunteers. I believe these also will be voted on later in this meeting. And that is the summary of the Finance and Operations Committee meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fields. The instruction and curriculum report, Mrs. Mitchell.
Thank you, Vice President Curry. The instruction and curriculum report is in the hands of each board member, and it has been made available to the public. I move for its adoption.
Second.
Thank you. Are there any comments from the board?
Ms. Curry, I had just, so I think we have an emergency declaration that we passed a similar declaration last year, but I had a community member just asking about sort of what does this emergency declaration authorizing, what is it not authorizing. And so I'd asked Dr. McGarry to just briefly clarify what it's for and why we're doing this.
Sure, I'll go discuss the 520.1, and then obviously our solicitor can chime in. There's a rule of thumb that while we're still operating in a pandemic, it's in our best interest that when we're providing different multiple instructional models, just to provide that flexibility, we're obligated under PDE guidance to continue to have a health and safety plan. Part of the health and safety plan falls under 520.1. We have a health and safety plan. It's also tied to our ESSER funding, the money that we're receiving as a school district. As another further offshoot of that, we have decided to also develop and pass a resolution further noting our ability to manage the pandemic and manage instructional models during this period of time. This is really not that much different than what we did in July, but and some interpret the health plan 520.1 is all that you need to do. We just want to be more deliberate and more transparent in having this resolution as well. Kyle?
Right. So passing this resolution gives the district more flexibility in dealing with any emergencies that come up in regard to this, to the current situation that we're in. It doesn't bind your hands in any way, and it doesn't mean that you have to act in a particular way, but it does allow you the flexibility to be able to deal with the crisis or crises as they may come up.
And I just wanted to clarify, it doesn't change the fact that that if we were to have to consider any major changes, we would still be inclined to discuss those publicly. That this isn't the sort of, I think the concern was that it's sort of giving carte blanche for us to do whatever we want without having the board vote on it. But this doesn't actually change our practice of discussing these changes in public.
Thank you, Dr. Haig. Are there any other comments from the board? Okay. Are there comments from the public?
There are no comments from the public.
Thank you. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, please signify by saying I oppose and state your name for the record. Those abstaining, please signify by saying I abstain and state your name for the record. Motion carries. The personnel report, Mrs. Mitchell.
Thank you, Vice President Curry. The personnel report is in the hands of each board member, and before I move for its adoption, I would just like to congratulate our 5 retirees and wish them a safe and healthy retirement. And now I move for the adoption of the report as stated.
Second.
Second.
Are there any comments from the board? Are there any comments from the public?
There are no comments from the public.
Thank you. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, please signify by saying I oppose and state your name for the record. Those abstaining, please signify by saying I abstain and state your name for the record. Motion carries. The policy report in the first reading, there is no vote required. Mr. Desnoyers?
Thank you, Vice President Curry. There are 10 policies up for first reading, and as Vice President Curry stated, no vote is required. Most policies being changed are being changed because of changes in school code. That is, school districts now have to take certain actions with regard to threat assessment. So there is a new policy, policy 236.1, titled Threat Assessment, that lays out the fact that the school district has to implement certain things concerning threat assessment and perform threat assessment. And these, chief among these is the implementation of either a district-wide threat assessment team or threat assessment teams at each school. So the district is, I believe, moving forward with both of these, a school at the school level and the district level. And I should say that the Upper Darby community in particular, there are a number of changes to policy 204, attendance, that are relevant for many of our families. Let me just hold on a moment. Let me get to that policy in my write-up, and I will highlight the the policy is being changed to comply with the new compulsory school age, which is the age children are required to be in school. That was changed several years ago by the state legislature and the governor. Children now have to be in school from age 6 to at least age 18 years. There are some exceptions to those age requirements, and those exceptions can be found in the authority section. There were additional changes, especially relevant to Upper Darby School District. Those are in the excused absences portion of the definitions section. They are number 1, illness, including if a student is dismissed from school for health-related reasons. Number 2, for the purpose of obtaining professional health care or therapy services provided by a licensed practitioner. Number 5, recovery from an accident or other health-related issue. Number 6, required court attendance. Number 8, observance of a religious holiday observed by a bona fide religious group upon prior written consent from the person in parental relation. Number 11, non-school sponsored educational tours or trips meeting certain conditions. Number 12, college or post-secondary institution visit with prior approval by the principal. And number 13, other urgent reasons that may reasonably cause a student's absence, as well as circumstances related to homelessness and foster care. And number 14, family emergencies. The district will permit excused absences for family emergencies up to 10 consecutive days. For absences of more than 10 days, the district encourages the family to withdraw the student after those 10 days and enroll in local school. If the family does not withdraw the student from school, the district will disable the student's district-owned technology. So those are really the areas I wanted to highlight. There are, Vice President Brown, Vice President Curry, a number of updates. The full summary of changes can be found on board docs. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Desnoyers. Now the policy report for the second reading, the 13.1 policy report, is the second reading approval. So do you have an update on that?
I do. The policy is undergoing second reading. That report is in the hands of each board member and has been made available for the public. I move for its adoption.
Second.
Thank you. Are there any comments from the board?
Vice President Curry, this is Mr. Desnoyers. I have a comment.
Sure.
Just a moment. Let me pull up a document. The four policies that, if approved tonight, will be the changes will be updated include policy 246, school wellness, policy 800.1, electronic signatures and records. This is a new policy. Policy 816, district social media. This is a new policy. And policy 916, volunteers. This is an updated policy. So the I think the most significant policy being changed is policy 816, district social media. This is a new policy to the district and will govern district-owned social media accounts. So platforms, district accounts, social media accounts on platforms used by the district. More can be found about these four policies in the summary of policy changes posted to board docs. Thank you, Ms. Curry. That concludes my comments.
Thank you, Mr. Desnoyers. Are there any more comments from the board? Are there any comments from the public?
There are no comments from the public.
Thank you. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, please signify by saying I oppose and state your name for the record. Those abstaining, please signify by saying I abstain and state your name for the record. Motion carried. The supplies report, Mr. Warsavage.
Thank you very much, Vice President Curry. The supplies report is in the hands of each board member and has been made available to the public. I move forward for its adoption.
Second, this is Mrs. Mitchell.
Thank you. Are there any comments from the board on the supplies report? Are there any comments from the public?
There are no comments from the public.
Thank you. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, please signify by saying I oppose and state your name for the record. Those abstaining, please signify by saying I abstain and state your name for the record. Motion carries. The facilities report, Mr. Fields, and the use of facility reports, and the donation report. Mr. Fields.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Vice President Curry. The facilities report, the use of facilities report, and the donation report are in the hands of each board member and have been made available to the public. I move for their adoption.
Second, this is Director Warsavage.
Thank you. Are there any comments from the board?
Vice President Curry, I have a couple comments.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Fields.
I just want to thank, and where is it? Oh, I lost it. There's been a donation of hand sanitizer from teachers, care of Raylan Harmon. And this is for every teacher, school nurse, and school counselor in the district. And so a very generous donation and always needed. And I just wanted to thank teachers' teammates and thank Raylan from the entire board. It's very, very, very nice. So that is much appreciated. Also, I want to point out on the facilities report that after many, many years, it looks like the courtyard of the Drexel Hill Middle School, which I believe is the courtyard that sits off the library, it's a tiny little space, is finally being renovated. Having toured the middle school and seen the courtyard last year, I was pretty sure it hadn't really had much in the way of renovation since I had been in middle school, and I'm not going to say how long ago that was. So I'm really glad to see that we're doing many good things facilities, but that's one of those nice to haves that I'm really happy to see. And so just wanted to point those out. That's pretty exciting for me. And that concludes my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fields. Are there any other comments from the board? Are there any comments from the public?
There are no comments from the public.
Thank you. Are all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, please signify by saying I oppose and state your name for the record. Those abstaining, please signify by saying I abstain and state your name for the record. Motion carries. So for the use of facilities report, Mr. Fields?
The facilities report and the use facilities report is in the, I think I already did this, but is in the hands of each board member and has been made available to move for its adoption.
Do we lump all three? Okay. Sorry about that, Mr. Fields.
It's okay. I'm ready to go.
Moving on to the next. The finance and budget report, Dr. Haig, thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Curry. The Finance and Budget Report is in the hands of each board member and has been made available to the public. I move for its adoption.
Second, this is Mrs. Mitchell.
Thank you. Are there any comments from the board? Are there any comments from the public?
There are no comments from the public.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please signify by saying I oppose and state your name for the record. Those abstaining, please signify by saying I abstain and state your name for the record. Motion carries. Okay, we're at the point of the meeting where we're going to have collateral assignments. We start off with myself for the Delaware County Community College, and I don't have a report this evening. I'd like to move on to the Delaware County IU Board, Mrs. Mitchell.
Thank you, Vice President Curry. The Delaware County IU Board met last week virtually. They do not normally meet in the month of July, but we had a few business matters to take care of, mostly pertaining to personnel. I don't have a significant report for you tonight. That's the balance of my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Mitchell. Legislative Council, Mr. Neal.
Thank you, Vice President Curry. I made a report available to the board members and to the public, available on board docs. It's important to note that the budget was passed by the Pennsylvania legislator and affirmed by the governor, in which our funding for the district has increased $5,247,390. Included in that, for the first time, is a level up funding that impacted 4 school districts in Delaware County, among other school districts elsewhere in the state that are in the basically our most impoverished school districts. And our level up according to that formula, the money that we received was $1 million. Chester Upland also received, and I did misspell that in the report, Southeast Delco and William Penn were the other 3 districts in Delco. I thought that was important. Also, for the learning loss that could be present for students during the COVID-19 pandemic, House Bill 1348, which is now the Act 24 of 2021, provided a distribution of nearly $500 million in federal American Rescue funds. Irby School District will be receiving an allocation of that at this time. I'm not sure if that's known, but it would be earmarked for learning loss. The minutes are available on the report as well as the legislative report. And that concludes my report, Vice President Curry.
Thank you, Mr. Neal. You always do such a good job of reporting that out. So thank you for providing that for the board and the public. The
No problem, my pleasure.
You're welcome. The Mendenhall Tyson Scholarship Committee, Dr. Haig.
No update at this time.
Thank you. Home and School, Mr. Warsavage.
Thank you, Vice President Curry. I was not in attendance in a last meeting. My apologies. I do believe Dr. McGarry and Ms. Aranda, we just went over the most recent goings on in our school board meetings, correct?
Yes, I apologize, Mr. Warsavage. We did have a meeting this past month with District Home and School. We'll have another one, I believe, in July that will discuss, again, updating the public and the home and schools on where we are with reopening schools. But the last agenda item we discussed were previous committee meetings with the District Home and School. We discussed the latest guidance on reopening schools. We discussed health and safety. We discussed field trips that were brought up. We discussed yearbook, the potential of going to a community, all schools going to a similar yearbook group with the District Home and School. And then they asked, the Home and Schools asked for time during these meetings as well to collaborate together as District Home and Schools. So we'll have another meeting and we'll continue to meet each month and provide an update.
Thank you. Was there anything else, Mr. Warsavage? I just want to make sure.
No, that is all.
Okay, thank you very much. Technology, Mr. Fields.
No report at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. PSBA representatives, Mr. Desnoyers or Mr. Warsavage.
This is Director Warsavage. No update at this time, though we should be expecting an update on the frequency and the occurrence of those board leadership, and weekly sessions I mentioned the last meeting.
Yes, I just want to add that I did receive an email today with a reminder from Karen Devine about signing up for those monthly meetings that will start taking place in August. And of course, those are open, so any of the board members who want to attend, they are open for your registration as well. Thank you. Policy Liaison, Mr. Desnoyers and Mr. Neal, do you have anything?
Yes, Vice President Curry, thank you. Just a reminder to the community that during the July 27th Finance and Operations Committee meeting, the board will be discussing the policies that govern school board and school board committee meetings and how the board would like to run those meetings so that Mr. Neal and School Director Neal and I can translate that into revised policy language. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Desnoyers. And last but not least, communications, Dr. Haig and Mrs. Mitchell.
I don't think we have an update at this time, but we'll be sending out the July update soon.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So that ends the portion of our collateral assignments. The next item is if there is any old business from board members. Is there any old business?
Vice President Curry, I have a small piece of old business if everyone doesn't mind.
Sure, Mr. Warsavage.
I just wanted to thank the community for their generosity in terms of the use of our facilities over the last several weeks. In addition to the awesome rehearsals and performances that have been coming through the Performing Arts Center for our wonderful summer stage program, I also wanted to commend the community for being gracious enough to host two really special cultural experiences over the last couple of weeks. Various board members were in attendance for both Juneteenth session on the high school grounds, as well as the very first LGBTQ Pride event held in Upper Darby Township and School District history. Kudos to all stakeholders who are responsible for making those weekends so special for the community. And again, big ups and gracious thanks to the community for being as big-hearted and gracious with your time and resources.
Thank you, School Director Warsavage. I would also like to agree with that both of those events were really very special to the Upper Darby community, considering they were first-time events, and hopefully we will see more of the support for those events in the future. Thank you very much. Is there any new?
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
This is Director Neal. I'm sorry. Thank you, Director Warsavage, for bringing that up. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Neal. Is there any new business from board members this evening? Okay, since there is no new business, we are now at the time for the public hearing. We will read both emailed and phone comments, which are subject to the 3-minute time limit and must include the commenter's name and address. Ms. Buford, are there any comments from the public?
There are no comments from the public.
Okay, with that being said, on this beautiful July hot 13th night, is there a motion for the adjournment of this meeting?
So moved, David Neal.
Second.
Second.
Mitchell.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Have a good night, everyone.
Good
Good night, everyone.
Good night.